Hello, welcome to this tutorial. Now we'll be diving into JavaScript as we have in our module JavaScript fundamentals. But basically, we are going to start with the fundamentals of JavaScript. That is the key features you need to understand on a layman's level before you can tell yourself that you have started learning JavaScript. So, and one of them is what you know as what the variables and data type. So, but in this course, we are going to dive into variables and everything we need to know about variables. Let's get started. So here in my VS Code, before we can dive into coding aspect of it and every other thing that is needed, we first need to understand some concepts about variables, what are variables and things we need to know about variables and how it concerns us in relation to what JavaScript. Now, variables are considered like containers because they are used to store what? Values. They are used to store values. So, and then there are what we call global variables and local variables. Now, when you define a variable on a global state, it is regarded as what? Global variables. But when you define it inside a block of code or inside a function, it is called local variables. Why are they called local variables? They are called local variables because they are restricted towards within that scope, that block of code. That is, the access is being restricted within that block of code. So anything outside that block of code, it cannot be accessed. That's why it's called local variables. But global variable means anywhere in your code, it can be accessed. Now we have three major variables that we make use of, although two are the most consistent, but one is more like outdated, is no more in use. So they are, the first one we know as what? The var. The val. Then the second is what we know as what? The length. And then the third is what we know as what? The const. It's a short form for what? Constant. So now, coming to the val, let's pick them one after the other. So when we talk of the val is is part of the variable, but then is an outdated version. Yes, it's outdated because it's no more in use. And then val is also a global variable. It's a global variable in the sense that even when it is defined within a scope or a block of code or within a function, it ignores that block. We can also access it globally. Remember what I explained between the global and the local variables. Now I have my val, let's say val x to be equals to 5. I can say, okay, let me log the value of x. You see here in my console, I will get 5, right? Very good. I can also come again and say val y equals 10, and then I will log my console. Let me see the value of y. So you see it's 10. But note this, variables, especially the two consistent ones, not this outdated one, because now this one is having as a global variable. So even though I should declare it inside a block of code, let's say something like this, and I have something like val w equals to 4. So if I come outside this block of code and also try to access the value of w, you see I can access it. When I say console of w, you see I get 4, of which is not supposed to be so. So if I want to get this value of w, I suppose go inside here and then log it, and it will also obey. But then, owing that val ignores any block of code, so anywhere it is being declared, it is considered as a global variable. So I can either do like this or even call this thing inside this block of code. Either of the way will still show me the value of what? W, which is what? 4. So now moving into the next one, which is length. That's one we call the length variable. Now coming to this length, this is one of the most current variable that is being made use of, the length variable. So I can say something like let y equals what? Equals 4, right? I can try to say, okay, let me log the value of y. If I log the value of y, I can see the value of y as what? 4. But then note that variables cannot be redeclared. What I mean by redeclared is that the length variable, I cannot come here and say, okay, since I have let y equals to 4, let me now have let another y again. You see, it will show an error. So it will tell me that I cannot declare that y is already declared. You can see that in my console. So I can't redeclare variables, but I can reassign let variables. What did I mean? So instead of having let y, I can come here and say let y, like not let, but y alone, y as a value should equals, let's say 6. Automatically, the value of y will now be 6. Remember, the dictionary have y to be equals to 4. Like when I clean this thing, I say let y equals to 4. So what is the value of y? The value of y here is what? 4. So, but I can reassign y, right? I can reassign y using let variable. So I can come here and say y, instead of being 4, I don't want you to be 10 or 20. So automatically, my console, it will update. So the recent value of y, which I reassign, will be the value, the real and the actual value of what? Y. That is for what? Let variables. Now, the last one, which is the const. The const is different. Just as I told you guys, is a short form for what? Constant. So I can neither redeclare a const variable or even reassign it. For example, I have, let's say, const y to be equals to 5, right? I cannot come here and say const another y because it will throw error automatically. It will throw error automatically. And then I cannot come and say it again, since I'm using const, I cannot come and say, okay, let y equals to 8. Though my VS Code or my code editor cannot show me error, but when I come to my console, you can see there is an error there. They say uncaught type error. That is assignment to a constant variable. That is, I can't assign, that is, I can't reassign constant variable twice. So I declare, this is what we call declaration. I can't declare it y. So here I have const y equals to 5. I can't come here and I have const y again. And I can either even come here and write y to be equal, so that is to reassign. But if I'm making use of length, that is let, I can't reassign let. That is to say, I mean, I can't redeclare let, come here again to say let again, and then I would send y to be equal to any other value. I can't do this, but I can reassign it. Reassignment means I can maybe say, let me the y, let the value of y be changed to what? 10. So at this level, okay, so let me change this thing to, let's say, x. So it's not camouflage with that of the cons. So at this level, I can console log the value of y, and once I reassign the value of y, automatically that new assignment becomes to what? The current value of what? Y. So I hope this video is very, very helpful and we understood the basic concept of what? Variables. See you in the next video. Bye.